can try and win championships, and that's what it's all about. When you look from the outside and you watch this team, I know we're going to have a real good, solid hockey team this year.
Welcome back to Fireside Rangers. I'm your host, Anthony Rovardo. You can call me Tony. This is my co-host, Eric. And today we are ready to talk some New York Rangers, 4th-line center. We're going to be discussing who we think should be the 4th-line center for the New York Rangers, the 2022-23 season. Forgive me if I lost my voice with chanting like a real frat boy, but we're back to talk some Rangers. I know it's the dead of the offseason. Everyone's kind of bored right now, but Fireside Rangers has you with all the updates that you need, rumors, whatever. Make sure to subscribe if you're new and ring the bell so you don't miss a video. Leave a like if you do enjoy this episode, or if you don't, we would appreciate it. But let's go ahead and dive into that 4th-line center position. First of all, we're going to start off with Ryan Carpenter because a lot of people believe this is Ryan Carpenter's position to lose in the 4th line as a 4th-line center. Carpenter, 31 years old, registered 12 points in 67 games between the Blackhawks and the Flames last year, signed with the Rangers on a one-year deal for $750,000 this offseason. And if the Rangers send him to Hartford to start the season, he comes off of the cap completely. So basically, Ryan Carpenter is looking at this as, I need to make this team or I'm out of here. Like, literally, he has to impress in the training camp period, which is coming up really soon. It is almost September, so keep that in mind. Preseason, training camp, right around the corner, all of that stuff. So Ryan Carpenter needs to make a name for himself, needs to prove that he's worthy of being the 4th-line center. Otherwise, he's going to Hartford, and we're taking his cap right off the books. But, Eric, before we really dive into all of the different options, what are your thoughts on Ryan Carpenter? I know he used to play for Gerard Gallant 2 seasons, 2017-18, 18-19. So he's got some familiarity with the system, got some familiarity with the head coach. But what are your thoughts on Ryan Carpenter? And do you think that he's the favorite to win the 4th-line center position?
So personally, I don't know that much about Carpenter. I was a big fan of Vegas back in the day, right when they first entered the league. But in recent years, I haven't followed him personally as a player very much. And I feel like he's one of those signings that the Rangers made this offseason that's kind of just been like brushed away. We've made a lot of bigger signings like Trocheck and a couple of other players, and no one's really talked about Carpenter that much. Is he the favorite to be the 4th-line center? I wouldn't necessarily say so because, we do have Barkley Goudreau, who's still on the team. And he is like a player who can move around. He's played on both wings. He's also spent time at our center position. So I definitely wouldn't count Goudreau out just yet. He did experience an injury throughout last year's playoffs, but he is back. He is expected to be healthy. So, whose job is it to lose? I don't think it's anyone's. I think it's definitely open for grabs. Carpenter could definitely fit in very well, but if Goudreau was the right fit, he could easily be there, or he can be shifted to the left or right wing. He's one of those players who can pretty much do anything that you ask of him.
Yeah, and I'll say that for Barkley Goudreau, just talking about his ability to maybe overtake this position from Ryan Carpenter. Like I said, a lot of people feel like Ryan Carpenter is the favorite to win the 4th-line center, but don't sleep on Barkley Goudreau, a player that the Rangers traded for at the start of the last free agency period. Suffered an injury during the postseason, but was able to return later on in the postseason. Did play in a bunch of games for the Rangers in 2021 and 22. Played in 79 total games. He put up 33 total points. That's decent production from a 4th-line center. But also keep in mind that Barkley Goudreau is a very versatile player. He's got the ability to play left wing, right wing, or center, as Eric already mentioned. He can move around on the line. So maybe he ends up shaping out to be the 4th-line center. Maybe he ends up shaping out to be the 3rd-line right wing or the left wing on the 3rd line. Whatever. He's got that ability to play all over the place. So keep that in mind. But talking about those centers specifically, Ryan Carpenter, as I mentioned, 12 points in 67 games last year. He's on a one-year deal right now. He had a 51.5 on draws in 2021 to 2022. So, and like I said, that familiarity with Gerard Gallant that he spent over in Las Vegas, that is pretty crucial. Gerard Gallant, not saying that he's just going to play favorites with the guy, but the fact that this guy knows how he likes to coach, knows how he likes to run his lines, that could definitely give Ryan Carpenter a little bit of an edge here as he tries to fight for the 4th line.
And, I don't mean to cut you off, but, 51.5% on faceoffs, it doesn't sound that impressive. It's like he wins 1.5% more faceoffs than he loses, which it's not a lot. But if you look back at the last couple of seasons for the Rangers, one of our biggest problems that we've experienced has been faceoff draws. was one of the major reasons why I hate Ryan Strome at center, was that he didn't win that many faceoffs as long with the rest of our depth. So like 1.5% over winning than losing, it may not sound good, but compared to our history in the last 4 to 5 years, that's like actually a significant improvement. So don't be like, whoa, with those stats. Be like, wow, we have someone who wins more faceoffs than we lose. It's one of our biggest problems. And just like, thank God that we have someone who actually knows how to win faceoffs for once.
Right. And people are saying that for Ryan Carpenter, the ability to win the faceoffs is what's giving him the upper hand in that fourth line. Because just as you mentioned, a lot of these Rangers centers over the last few years have really struggled to win those faceoffs. Ryan Carpenter, at least he's got a 50-50 shot, a little bit better than a 50-50 shot, but at least he's got that coin flip where he could win those faceoffs. Yeah. No, he's not elite at it, but he's at least decent at it.
And like for those who like are still new to the sport of hockey, it's like faceoffs do mean everything, If you have a faceoff in the neutral zone, you need to win that faceoff. You need to have that offensive possession. If you can have your team carry the puck into the offensive zone, it's a lot better than having the other team carry the puck into your zone. Faceoffs may seem like a minor stat that doesn't really matter that much to the overall sport, but if you really just like watch the game and pay attention to the small details, faceoffs are one of the most important stats. You need offensive possession. You need to be in control of the puck more so than the other team being in control. It's just like simple facts, but like I feel like when I first got into the sport, I was like, face-off percentage, it's not that important in the grand scheme of things. But, the more I watched, the more I realized it is. So, like, it might seem like a small detail, but it's important. Don't overlook it.
Totally. Yeah, the face-off percentage is super important. Don't just be a point junkie and say, oh, he's got so many points, so many goals, so many assists. There's other factors in the game of hockey. Of course, it's a very complex sport. It takes many lines to win. So, of course, continuing our discussion about the fourth line, let's go ahead and talk about Gustav Varie. Gustav Varie is a 27-year-old who scored 30 points in 44 games in the SHL last season before signing as a free agent with the Rangers. He's 6'3", 201 pounds, big, beefy dude playing the center, and many consider him to be a clutch performer. He was on his way to winning the SHL championship last season, and he did that, potting 12 points in 19 games. Rydal is also waivers exempt, so there's a good chance we could see him in the season, even if he doesn't make the team out of camp. So like I mentioned, training camp right around the corner. There's going to be cuts. There's going to be the official lines. There's going to be players who don't make the lines. Now, Gustav Rydal, maybe he doesn't make the line, but don't think that means that he's going elsewhere necessarily because, again, as I just mentioned, he is waivers exempt, so he could always return to the Rangers sometime during the regular season, which is super important. But, Eric, I know some of these guys that we're going to be discussing today we're not super familiar with. We haven't seen them play too much, but any thoughts on Gustav Rydal and the fact that, he is a big forward at 6'3", 201 pounds?
Yeah, I mean, as we've mentioned in previous episodes, I do try to be the Rangers expert on this channel. I'm very well versed on the current team, but when it comes to like our prospects and our future, I know names, but I don't know too much about them. Rydal is one of those players that like I've heard the name before. I've heard a lot of really great things about him, but I don't know too much about his style of play. I haven't really watched that much film of him, but you look at those stats that you just read to me, especially in the championship, you got 12 points in 19 games. Those are very impressive stats. I can't sit here and break down every little detail about what he's done, but just looking at the numbers specifically, I think that's really impressive. And, you could also say that I might be wrong because you look at Panarin in last year's playoffs, he had great point numbers, but his defensive play was really lacking. He received a lot of criticism for that. So I can't really give you a definite answer if, yes, he deserves to be our fourth line center or not at this very moment. But I will say those stats are promising. I do think that there are a couple of other players like Goudreau, like Carpenter, who I definitely know a lot more about, who I would feel more confident putting in at the fourth line right now. But, I wouldn't rule this guy out of the books right now. If you guys, anyone who's watching, knows more about Rydal right now, who could inform us a little more, leave a comment, inform me. It's always good to learn more about the team. But like I said, stats look promising, and I can't really say anything bad just based off of that.
Yeah, I mean, he was elite playing against lesser competition. So hopefully, if he were playing against better competition, maybe not elite, right? But maybe he can be a solid contributor on your fourth line.
Mhm.
And that's always the hope there, right? Playing in the SHL, 12 points in 19 games in the championship. Of course, 27 years old, 30 points in 44 total games in the SHL season. Very impressive stats right there, but it's the SHL, not the NHL. How does that game translate over to the NHL? That's the important question for Gustav Varie. And so that's pretty much the question heading into training camp.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, it's like I said, I don't know much about the prospects of the Rangers, but the fact that I've heard his name before, it's got to mean something, you know.
Right,
There's
right.
I know very few prospect names, but I know Rydal, so it's like he's got to be good.
Yeah, there's a few Rangers prospects that fans are keying in on, right? They know them, they bring their names up in conversation, and those guys you want to give a little bit more attention to. And we are going to be paying a lot of attention to a guy like Gustav Varie during the training camp period, like Brennan Othman during the training camp period. That's another prospect whose name has come up multiple times on this channel and elsewhere. So we're keying in on some of these prospects as we move into the training camp and preseason periods. But I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next option at the fourth line. It's, again, going to be another lesser-known prospect that we maybe don't know too much about, but I'll read off the stats, let Eric give his take before we wrap up and discuss who we believe should be the fourth line center. So we're going to be talking about Adam Edstrom. Adam Edstrom is 21 years old. He notched 9 points in 43 games in the SHL last season. So I know you think about that, 9 points, 43 games compared to Gustav Varie. He had 30 points in 44 games. So kind of like a not so encouraging comparison for Adam. But then again, Rydal's 27. Edstrom is 21. So there's a whole lot to say there. But the Rangers didn't draft him to score either. So, of course, like I said, 9 points. But this is a 6'6", 207-pound tank that isn't afraid to get dirty, get down and dirty, and put some people up against the glass and start some fights on the ice, get dirty, and make some big hits out there. So Adam Edstrom is really more of your center on the fourth line who would be a bit more defensive. Get into those fights. Be that gritty, dirty player that you want maybe on your fourth line potentially. So, Eric, what are your thoughts on Adam Edstrom, and what are your thoughts really on him being a 6'6", 207-pound tank that plays on the fourth line?
I mean, like I said, there's only a few names that I recognize in our prospect pool. This is not one of them. I've personally not heard this name before, but based on how you've described him, he seems like a big guy, more of an enforcer type player. In my opinion, he just seems a lot like Ryan Reeves, but without NHL experience. So in my opinion, I don't really see him making the lineup anytime soon because we already have a player just like him on the fourth line. The only way that I can see this happening is if somehow Ryan Reeves gets injured, the team lacks a lot in physicality, we're just getting beat up all over the ice, and the Rangers are just desperate for some hero to come in and just beat someone up for the captain. You know, it's like I really don't think that we're going to see Edstrom play this season. Maybe in a couple of years. You know, there's a lot of questions around Ryan Reeves. Will he remain with the team? Will he not? Because Ryan Reeves has really been pretty bad offensively and defensively. The only thing he provides for us is just punching people at this point. So who knows what'll happen? I definitely think that out of all the names that we've discussed tonight, Edstrom is the least that I expect to be on the team. I still think that Goudreau or Carpenter are the two most likely options. But, you know, who knows what'll happen? We've said this a million times in the last couple episodes. The lineup is still up for grabs. Preseason and training camp are just around the corner. Maybe this guy will come out of nowhere and put up a bunch of points and just cave in someone's skull, and he'll make the lineup. Who knows at this point, you know? That's what I love about the beginning of the season is no lineup is ever set. You know, you have a team like the Rangers who seems like so solid. We're going to be probably top 5 in the league, hopefully, maybe. But, you know, no one's locked in. That's what's the beauty of hockey. You know, if this guy comes out and plays great, maybe he'll make the lineup. Maybe he won't. I'd say there's about like a 0.5% chance he makes the lineup. But who knows? I've seen crazier things happen.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm not saying that Adam Edstrom is likely to make the roster at all, make the lineups at all. But one thing that I will say is he is probably better suited to start off with Hartford, you know, playing with the Wolfpack in the AHL. But one thing that I'll say is like our boy Gustav Varie, he is also waivers exempt. So if the Rangers want to, they could see him play in the lineups during the regular season at some point. Maybe they're going up against a garbage team, right? Throw out the most garbage team in the NHL. Go ahead, throw it out.
The Arizona. Actually, you know what? If it was last season, I'd say the Coyotes. But after the atrocity that the Chicago Blackhawks have had as an offseason, I got to go with the Blackhawks.
Let's say the Rangers are beating up on the Blackhawks. We know it's a win going into it. Kind of, we're super confident. Maybe the Rangers go ahead, put Adam Edstrom on the roster. He's waivers exempt. So they'll send him down to Hartford, see what he's got, and then maybe move him up in the regular season just to see what he can provide in the NHL. Like I said, waivers exempt. Probably to be developed in the AHL, though. So those are really all of your main options here. But if we really had to project the lineups and project who the centers are on each line, you're going to Zibanejad. Mika Zibanejad on the first line, duh. Second line, Vincent Trocheck. He just signed that massive 7-year deal. Obviously, he's going to be playing on the second line. Filip Chytil, we think, is a lock for the third line, though maybe not as big of a lock as those first two guys. We do think there could be some controversy surrounding Filip Chytil. We've talked about him. Go check out our last episode if you want to hear more of our opinions on Filip Chytil. But then on that fourth line, the main topic of discussion in today's episode, Ryan Carpenter, Barkley Goudreau, probably going to see Carpenter take that spot, but don't sleep on Goudreau because this is a player who has a lot of versatility and some pretty decent experience playing in the NHL.
Yeah, I mean, I think personally the smartest option would be to put Goudreau on a wing position on the fourth line and then have Carpenter as the center, because you could put Goudreau as the center, but then it kind of leaves just Carpenter out of the question for a little bit, because we know that Goudreau is a versatile player, as you said earlier. He can play on the wing. Like I said, I don't know much about Carpenter. I don't know how he'll fit on a wing. I think you just want your best players. You want the best depth that you can get at this point. If you really want to win a Stanley Cup. I think that's been the biggest theme of this offseason, as we've said before. Yeah. So, like you mentioned, in my opinion, hopefully the center positions will go Zibanejad, Trocheck, Chytil, Carpenter, and then maybe on the left or right wing, you'll throw in Barkley Goudreau.
Yeah, and I think that makes a lot of sense there. Of course, once we get into training camp, into the preseason, we're going to be going over the lines once again. We've already done line projections before, but we're going to do them once again because those things are forever changing until October 11th, until the Rangers take the ice against the Tampa Bay Lightning, right? So we're going to be discussing that a whole lot, but I hope you all enjoyed our discussion on this fourth line center position. I know it may not seem like much, fourth line center, yada, 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 but the number one thing that we've been talking about, as you mentioned, the theme of the offseason, it's been depth, man. Depth is of the utmost importance for the Rangers. We saw some really tired bodies out there on the ice in the Eastern Conference Finals last season. So we want to avoid that. We want to see some solid depth go out there, some young legs, go out there, put the puck in the net in the 2022-23 season, push us deeper into the playoffs than we even were last season. So make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this episode. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode. We're bringing you with discussions like this, news, rumors, trade reports, all that kind of stuff. It will be right here on Fireside Giants. Comment down below who you think should be the fourth line center, or Fireside Rangers. Sorry, I do two podcasts. Plug for Fireside Giants, no issue. But it'll be right here on Fireside Rangers. Of course, make sure to comment down below who you think should be the fourth line center and who you think is battling for this position. And like I said, stay tuned for all that training camp and preseason coverage right here on Fireside Rangers. But before we go, I will say this. Have a good one. And let's go Panthers! Just kidding, mother.
You got to bleep that out. Let's go Rangers.
Let's go Rangers.
He shoots. He scores!